Mortal Kombat, released in cinemas in 2021. Now, this movie came out just over a decade after the Dark Knight trilogy, where you take a superhero property or some kind of a video game property and filmmakers were simply making it more grounded and realistic. And that was actually my concern going into this movie, which is knowing how Mortal Kombat is and how over the top it is, will this movie make the mistake of taking itself way too seriously? I kind of went in optimistic for the most part, as I do with almost everything, but I did have that small concern in my mind in case if this movie does make that mistake of blowing the realism aspect as a proportion. So, how did this movie do and what is this movie? Well, in terms of story, Mortal Kombat is about a struggling MMA fighter called Cole Young, who finds out he's destined to fight in this tournament called Mortal Kombat. In this tournament, combatants from different realms of the world come together and fight each other. One realm fights to defend itself and the other realm fights to conquer that realm and take it over. Meanwhile, the all-evil Shang Tsung is conspiring to kill all the combatants defending Earth Realm before the tournament starts. And so Cole Young now kind of finds himself in a situation where he has to team up with a group of people to fight Shang Tsung. In order to do that, Cole Young must awaken his Arcana. Arcana is this inner power that all these combatants have that must be awoken in order for them to be able to fight in the Mortal Kombat tournament. With threats made to Cole Young's family, Cole realizes that he's actually running out of time and he must find his inner power, his inner Arcana, sooner rather than later if he wants to face off Shang Tsung and protect his family. So straight away, the positives about this movie is the prologue. The prologue is so character driven and so heart-wrenching that it made a very, very great impression. It immediately kind of sets up the character dynamic straight away. You have Scorpion, who is a more sympathetic character. He wants balance, a simple life, doesn't really want to complicate things or kind of go to war. Scorpion's home is attacked by Sub-Zero, who is this cryomancer who can manipulate ice. Sub-Zero, he basically has a bloodthirst. He wants to conquer worlds and Scorpion is one of his targets. So immediately from this prologue, you immediately understand what this movie is about. It's a movie about the souls of warriors. Some warriors want the same things me and you want and are benevolent, while some other warriors want to conquer and destroy, like Sub-Zero. And it does a very, very good job of establishing the overall theme that this movie is going to explore for the rest of the story. That prologue also introduces the audiences to the world, because you now know that this is a world where you have warriors who have special supernatural powers that they're going to fight each other with. Another great thing about this movie are the horror elements. I was very, very surprised to see how well done the horror elements were. You have Sub-Zero who stalks his prey like the T-1000. You have Reptile who can camouflage itself like the Predator and also spit acid like the Alien. So it treats it like a horror movie monster. And then of course you have Goro, who is this hulking, brutish character, kind of like the Incredible Hulk meets the RoboCop 2 enemy. These horror elements are great. It really does make the villains feel threatening. You are at the edge of your seat. It does kind of create this urgency for Cole Young to find his inner Arcana. He has to find his inner power as these bad guys close in on his friends and allies and family members. Mortal Kombat is a gory game. It's known for its gore, it's known for its hellscape, it's known for its fatalities and brutalities, and so horror goes hand in hand with this. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised how the director was able to weave this into this movie. And this leads me to the negatives about this movie. First of all the serious and sentimental parts in this movie actually feel a bit cringe and kind of out of place. And it's a shame because everything else works. The humor works great. Kano is a very funny character, written in great. The horror works fantastic. The gore is there. But the movie seems to want to focus on the more sentimental part. And it's just not good at that. And it's mainly because the main character isn't fleshed out very well. He's just a stock brooding character who wants to save his family. He doesn't have any character flaws, so you're literally watching a character who's reacting to situations rather than learning and kind of adjusting his decisions as he goes along. He's just a victim of the situations. You lose interest, especially when he's the main character. That's a big problem for a movie because you're going to spend the majority of the movie through his eyes and he's just a completely flat stock character. A second problem is his ally, Sonya Blade. Sonya Blade and him work together very closely, and Sonya Blade is written in like a cartoon military type. This character would have worked if the story did not focus so heavily on the sentimental parts. But because it did, Sonya Blade just feels very cartoony compared to Cole Young, who they tried to make more realistic. The interactions are very jarring. Another issue with the movie is that the plot was completely predictable. Right after the prologue, when you're cut to Cole Young, you kind of know what the connection is between this character and the character you saw in the prologue. I'm not spoiling anything here. Literally, just after the prologue, once it makes that cut, you will know exactly what it is and how it's going to play out. The fact that the plot is so predictable and you know the revelation that's going to happen ahead is kind of what makes the story feel boring for the most part. What the story should have done is made Cole a flawed character, so flawed in fact that you can't actually make a connection between Cole and a legacy character that you saw. That way, there's such a big gap between these two characters that it will actually feel surprising and shocking when the revelation is made. And lastly, one big flaw that I saw in the movie is how bad the fight scenes are choreographed. Mortal Kombat, the movie, is based on Mortal Kombat, the game, and Mortal Kombat games are fighting games. So you would expect fighting to be the first priority of the filmmakers. Instead, fighting feels like an afterthought. And that's a big issue because the fatalities are great. The fatalities are these brutal finishes that each character makes in the game. And of course, they have that element here. But they focused on the finishes, but it seems as if the filmmakers didn't really focus on the fights that leads to those finishes. All the fights, they're choreographed in a way where they kind of feel very, very similar. A couple of the fights stood out. You know, the fight in the prologue between Sub-Zero and Scorpion was amazing. And then, of course, the fight between Goro and Cole Young was great. But all the other fights, they all feel similar. Yes, you do have some special powers floating around the scene and whatnot, but the only thing that differentiated the characters were the finishes. It's just the fights themselves were kind of underwhelming. And I really wish the filmmakers paid more attention to the fighting. So, Mortal Kombat 2021. What do I think about it? Well, were my intentions met? Yes, unfortunately, this is a movie that did take itself too seriously. My concerns were right going in. What this movie should have done is actually focus more on the genre elements. This movie does comedy well, as mentioned before, horror very, very well, but focus on those genre elements. And as the story progresses, create sentimentality from these genre elements, because when you're using the brooding and grounded character as the spine of your story, it's a very jarring experience when the filmmakers kind of hook on these horror elements, comedy elements, or these other genre elements. It's a jarring experience. I would say it's just about a decent movie, a watchable movie. So I would say watch this movie if you can find it on sale.